This conference will now be recorded.
So welcome to the Club Development and Planning webinar. Tonight's agenda, we are going to cover the emergency funding, which isn't really related to planning, but just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of the emergency funding that's available out there at the moment. We're going to be looking at planning for your club's future, and I will run through that part. And then we're going to look at Archery GB's club development program, called, which many of you probably already know is ontarget. And throughout the session, please, as I said, ask questions through the chat function, and between me and Helen, we'll bring you into discussions. So first up, many of you probably have seen this information, but in case you haven't, we just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of it. And there's also been some slight alterations to the way that we wanted to promote the scheme as well. This morning I've had a conversation with someone from Sport England so that we can give some kind of updates on how you should position your application should you be putting in a submission to Sport England. So they do have their community emergency fund for English clubs. Sport Wales, Sport Scotland, Sport Northern Ireland have got similar schemes as well. But at the moment, I'm going to concentrate on the Sport England one because that's where we've had most of our interactions so far. It is open for applications between £300 and £10,000, and they have a specific website that you can go and have a look at. They are saying that if you have specific costs such as rent or utilities, insurances, facility or equipment hire, that you've had to pay out from anywhere between the 1st of March up until July, you will be able to apply to Sport England for some funding to cover off those losses. Where there's been a slight change recently, and thank you for some of the clubs that have come forward to share this information with us, is that some clubs were thinking about going in for losses in terms of loss of income, and Sport England have been starting to turn around to clubs and not declining the whole application, but declining elements of the application, which are related to a loss of income, such as a profit from a competition or profit from a beginner's course or those kind of activities. So I had that clarified to me this morning from the officer at Sport England, and it really is looking at specific items of that you've paid out for, and you've not necessarily been able to cover those with the income that you've not receiving at the moment. You can apply to Sport England if you have any reserves. That is allowable, but obviously it needs to be done in a realistic manner. So, for instance, if you have £30,000 in the bank and you're asking for £300, that might not be looked on favourably. But if you had £5,000 to £10,000 to £15,000 in the bank, and it's the reserves that you've built up for a specific reason, and you can demonstrate that to Sport England, then that is okay, because they expect well-run clubs to have reserves. And the other potential emergency financial grant available is the Small Business Grants Fund. So we're aware of a number of archery clubs up and down the country who've been able to receive £10,000 through their local authority. And this is clubs that are asset owning, limited companies by guarantee, that pay rates on the land that they have, and that rate is less than £15,000. In all of these cases, that we ask that you check the criteria, because applying might restrict you from one or the other. So if you, for instance, went to Sport England and got a grant from them, you might not then be able to get the £10,000. But we haven't heard of any clubs that have been potentially knocked back through having both yet, and obviously we'll assess that situation as and when. If any of you have applied, it'd be interesting for us to know. If any of you have received funding, then please do let us know, because Sport England aren't telling us who has received money at the moment, who hasn't. And also, if you're from other nations, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and you've managed to get some funding, then we'd be interested to know about that as well, so that we can promote it and make sure that the other clubs in those areas are aware of that opportunity. So far, Sport England have had 24 applications, and as you can see on screen, they've assessed 17, and they've only knocked back 4 at the moment. So 13 clubs have been approved, and the average payout is around £2,000. So that's good that these clubs are getting. If clubs are not approved, then obviously Sport England apparently are providing information on where to either resubmit your application, where to improve it, or potentially look at other funds, and we can help with that process as well. So that was just a quick summary of the emergency funding that's available. So turning to tonight's topic is around club development and planning. So to start with, just wanted to really break down what we meant by club development. Club development is making improvements to your activities and the way that your club operates, so that you become a better club. It's about looking at reviewing your activities and making sure that they are right for the club and its members, because that's where that's why you're there naturally. And also it's around supporting the wider agendas of increasing participation, whether that's with the same target audience that your club attracts, or whether it's looking at different sections of your local community that you feel that you might be able to bring into the sport. And part of that process is having a plan, a club development plan, a business plan, or whatever you, an action plan, whatever you call it. And that's a way of having the opportunity to make some decisions about the direction that your club wants to go in. Many sports clubs don't have a plan, don't have any idea of where they want to be in 5-10 years time. So we are really encouraging clubs, especially at the moment when we can't necessarily do the activity we all love to do, is to look at the club and to see whether there's an opportunity for you to review the activities that you do, look at the actions that you wish to see happen, and maybe define a strategy for a way forward. These actions could obviously underpin and help you achieve longer term goals, and that might be achieving your own facility, which I know many clubs want to do. And it also will help focus your club and your committee's thoughts and minds in terms of what you're trying to achieve and how it will actually happen. That plan would potentially look at some short-term actions and objectives that can be easily measured and evaluated, and we'll talk about that shortly. But it also could answer some questions that stakeholders have in terms of your members, any sponsors, any potential funders, will always be wondering or wanting to know what your club is trying to achieve. So whether it's a few paragraphs on a 1 page or a 10-page document that's fully costed out, that will be something that stakeholders would be looking to see. So in terms of having a plan, for your club, as I said, it identifies where you can focus your time and your efforts. Obviously, you are all volunteers with multiple hats on. I am a volunteer as well, the chairman of a club, but also an umpire and a part-time coach, etc. So we all wear multiple hats. But it's that a plan means you won't waste your time on tasks that won't get you anywhere, and at least it can give some clear goals and directions, which shapes the thoughts and can give you some meaning at your committee members. My own club, we've got a club development plan, but for over the last year we've been focusing on 3 or 4 different actions, and those actions have been the standard committee agenda items at every meeting. So there may not have been major steps forward in each of those areas, but at least they are on our committee agenda every time, and we've been able to continue the moving them forward. And then that would help you identify any weaknesses, potential opportunities in your club as well, and will motivate people in what they're trying to achieve. For your stakeholders, and they could be your members, they could be funders, they could be your sponsors. It will help communicate your plans, as we said earlier, and it will demonstrate that you have control over your club and a full understanding of where you potentially want to go. Will, are you there?
Hiya.
Hello, how are you?
Hello. Fine, thank you.
Good. Thanks for commenting. So you're at the University of Bristol,
Yes.
and you've got a club strategy. Do you want to just give us some idea of how that came about?
Okay, so being with the university, we have a bit of a unique situation in that our funding comes, or a portion of our funding and facility time comes directly from the university. And year on year, we have to provide to them a club strategy and a 3 to 5 year plan on where we want to take the club in the future, as proof to them that we are developing the club in the way that they think is productive and positive. And as well as that, our committee tends to roll over year on year as new students join and old students leave the university. So as well as our strategic planning for the club's development, we also have handover documents which outline the roles and the goals of each part of each subsection of the committee to help push the club in the right direction in the future and stop things from stagnating as new people come in and old things are dropped. The ball is dropped on it year on year. So it's to try and keep things moving forward.
And what's the size of that plan? Is it, are we talking a page, a couple of pages? And how is it? Yeah, go on.
The document's is kind of about five pages long, and it comes in lots of different pieces. So we have to present it at the end of the year to a board. So it all gets condensed down into a much shorter 10-minute presentation. But the goal for the committee, the action plan for the committee is is about a 5-page document, or maybe a bit longer, with outlining the club's aims for the future.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that.
No worries.
So at the moment, a lot of you may be looking at some firefighting activities and having to put into place some emergency planning. And whilst there is a hiatus on the actual activity, this is a great time to put together an emergency plan. We know of some clubs that quickly had to get hold of some equipment because it was stored at a facility that might not be available long term. We know of some clubs that have had to quickly put into place some emergency actions that will help them get to a point where returning to archery will be much easier. So in the event that an emergency will happen in the future, whether it's another situation like we're in now, or potentially, well, not potentially, I don't want to say that, but it could be a theft or an arson attack, and we know that many clubs experience those types of things. What would happen in those situations? What would you do? Have you mitigated the potential risks that would happen? And hindsight is a wonderful thing, but many of you have experienced all of you have experienced the fact that we've gone from full activity to no activity pretty much in the space of a few days. So you understand the issues that you've had to go through, and could, if that situation happened again for whatever reason, could you look to put certain things in place that would avoid any ad hoc or knee-jerk responses being taken. It would give you a framework to work towards that would help you cope with that emergency, and be able to hopefully build up your resilience to any future emergencies that may happen. In terms of medium to long-term planning, then a good place to start, if you don't have a plan, is the typical SWOT analysis: the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And this is a great way to understand where your club could do some activities, where they do activities really well, where you could possibly improve some of the activities or events that you run. What are those real opportunities that could change your club for the better? And what are those things that could have a major threat to your either existence or the way that your activities are run? And obviously they could be internal to your club, or they could be obviously external as well. And not also is there the SWOT. There's also other high-level management activities as well, such as the pestle and other things as well. But in terms of looking at your club and how it could start a planning process, then the SWOT is obviously a good place to start. And tonight I wanted to make sure that you left this webinar with some actions to do. So if you haven't undertaken a SWOT recently, or you don't have one at all, then the action I'd like you to look at is to undertake that SWOT analysis. So There's a few questions up on the screen, and we will send you the slides so you can have a look at them as well. So what is the current position of your club? And you may want to do a SWOT analysis on the position right now, so an emergency stuff, or you may want to say, right, okay, what is the normal current position of the club? What do you do really well? And what are you known for locally? Many of you do reach out to the community and do have-a-goes and beginners courses. Have you got a niche product that you provide? Are you well known for? Is there a certain company or activity that you do that makes you stand out? And what's the limiting factors to achieving your goals? Many clubs want to move quite quickly to a position of owning their own facility. Now, that's not always achievable in some cases, but how could you make small steps towards that? Does that mean moving to a larger facility? Is there a school being built in the area? Is there loads of housing, a new estate being built? Do you know who your local councillors are, your sports development officers, etc.? And where are those competitors? Is it another archery club that's potentially a competitor, or is there an opportunity for you to work together to bring people into the sport? Is it other leisure clubs, other leisure providers that are your competitors? So that would be a really good place to start, and it might be that you do that as a committee, or you ask each committee member or all of your members to undertake a SWOT analysis, and then you bring that back together and combine the results. The next action that you can maybe think about is what your club is trying to achieve, and do you have a vision that you believe in and that you go proud to share with your members? Where do you want your club to be in the future? What is your vision? Has that been discussed? Do you get to your committee meetings and the same issues are discussed not even year in, year out, but meeting to meeting? I know certainly with my club, which is a hockey club, there used to be a discussion point about having not enough hockey balls, not enough bibs to undertake the activities that we were doing. And we actually got to a point where we invested in a flat pack container and asked all of our members to bring any equipment that they had, so that we had it in the central place. So take all your equipment out of your garages, cars, back rooms, and bring it into the container, and we'll have a proper stock take then. When we did that, we realized we didn't need to buy balls or bibs for another 5 years, pretty much. So that was a good exercise to go through, because then that stopped those questions about having bibs and balls to be brought to a committee meeting, when somebody potentially could have just asked the treasurer for a little bit of money. Not that they needed to, but they could have done that and gone out and bought them. So your vision obviously can set out your strategy in terms of, you know, why is your organization set up? What is it? What was the original idea of your existence? And we know that's just, you know, to shoot archery, but to shoot arrows and practice at archery. But, you know, what outcomes do you want to achieve? Is it you want to be the biggest club in the area? Is it that you want to potentially see your members get through to the Olympic or the Paralympic squads? What values do you have locally that influence the direction of your club, and how do how do you stand out from everybody else? Going back to what we said a minute ago, what is that activity that you're well known for, or the values that you provide and show to your members? And also, what would be different, and this is maybe a question you can ask your members, what would be different if you weren't around? What would they miss? What would be the impact of you and your club not necessarily being there? So it really can work out how you can draw together a vision and draw people into understanding how that vision is going to achieve your goals and your objectives, which is the next point. Outlining what your key objectives are for your club will then allow you to work out whether you have the right skills available in the club, whether you have the right monies available to achieve those objectives. And I'm sure you're all aware of the SMART approach: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So if you have existing objectives as your club, are they SMART? Are they achievable in the current situation? Are they achievable once fingers crossed we get back to some kind of normality? So again, another task for you to do is to look at those key objectives that you may already have for your club, and are they still achievable? And if you don't have any objectives and a plan, then obviously this is part of the process to help you get there. Obviously, it'd be nice it was really great to hear from Will, but if there's anybody else that has any examples of how their club has approached this, then feel free to put your name in the chat box, and we can get you to say a few words, and it'll save my voice a little bit. Whilst we're waiting for that, Mandy's just asked the SMART, so specific, so make sure it's really short, sharp, and everybody understands what you're trying to achieve. Make sure it's measurable, so how will you know you've succeeded? Can you measure its success? So is it around the number of people signing up? Is it around the amount of funds that you've raised? Or the number of people that have inquired as a result of advertisement? Is it achievable? So do you have enough resources, people, time to perform the task? Is it realistic? So are you able to reach your target? If you're a small club, is having your own facility achievable by the end of the summer season? That's, it's got to be a realistic goal, and obviously it's timely as well, so it's got to have a potential start and an end date. So how do you get there? There's 3 points here in terms of trying to turn your vision and your into that reality and achieving your objectives. So what are the strategic strategies that you want to put down first? How are you going to achieve your objectives, and are there different ways of doing that? And evaluating each and every option. So considering the approach that you might take, will it annoy some people in your club because people have been doing the activities in a certain way for the past 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So looking at each of the options to make sure that you're not going to lose vital volunteers or vital members. And can you afford to do it? Can you afford also, or excuse me, can you afford not to do it? Yeah, if you train up people, do you run the risk that they use their skills elsewhere rather than trying to implement your strategy? But it's probably beneficial overall to be supporting your colleagues, your peers, your volunteers in your club, and hopefully it will in turn invite more people to step up and volunteer for your club. Who's going to be responsible for those actions? What are they actually going to do and when? And also, who's going to oversee the whole strategy? You can't do it on your own. You need committee buy-in. You need people to support you to develop those actions. So if you are one lone voice in your club, a 15-page action plan isn't going to happen. So you may want to start small and build up and show people that you're serious about changing your club for the better. And another action for you to take is to look at the strategies and actions that will meet those objectives. As we discussed earlier, the plans don't need to be thick manuals. It could be as simple as a few pieces of paper and a few actions that you want to achieve. As I said, don't leave it up to one person. You do need support and help. You'll need those people that will be involved in putting in the action into the plan into action. So they need to be able to help shape it and give realistic input into what's achievable. You need support and buy-in from your management group, your committee. So they're involved in obviously the decision making of the club, so they should be fully aware. You need your club members to be involved. You need any other volunteers. Don't forget that you can get volunteers within archery clubs that don't necessarily have to be shooting members of Archery GB. So you could have a finance committee member, treasurer, who is a volunteer and non-shooter, or some external advisors. You know, it could be a partner or a friend that is a business minded that could help shape your club. And there is us at a national level. There are active partnerships, there are sports councils, there are volunteer groups in all of your areas. And whilst at the moment they are generic volunteer groups are probably more geared to supporting the situation at the moment but you know, those groups are there to support volunteer groups. So when sport is back on track, they will be there to support you as well. So whether that's a sports development officer or the volunteer centres that many areas have, your local councillors, they often have pots of money that you could tap into as well. So you need people to be able to action those actions, for want of a better word, but you also need support and help to potentially guide you to achieving those activities. And how do you know you're there? A plan is not something that you just write and throw in a drawer. It needs to be a living document. So it might be that you review your plan at every committee meeting. You should have clear objectives, so you should be able to understand whether you've achieved them or not. And the timescales involved as well will obviously be able to tell you whether you've achieved that on time or not, or whether you need to think about reviewing the timescales involved. And it just gives you an opportunity to hold people to task as well. And don't be afraid of updating the plan if and when things possibly move or go wrong. If your business plan is done well and you look at it regularly, it does become a living document that you can bring out, and everybody knows the journey that you're going on. And it might not be a straight line. It might be that you have to take a diversion and come back onto track. But by using that document, you can keep yourself and the club on track. And reviewing it at your management or committee meetings. You may have a short-term working group or a subcommittee that may be responsible for keeping everybody on track. There's an opportunity at your AGMs to include your membership in that review and to bring them up to speed in terms of your progress. And if you didn't catch up with us in our previous webinar, we did do on virtual meetings and AGMs, and that's available on the YouTube website, YouTube page for Archery GB. So if you haven't seen that, you can spend another night listening to me drone on about virtual meetings and AGMs, but give some really good tips to successfully achieve that. And that AGM or that annual review with your members as well, that will aid discussion. So you can keep your members engaged and informed of the direction of travel that you're going in. And when you're making those key decisions, that plan will enable you to decide whether it needs changing or whether an activity that's happening is fit for purpose, and whether you should actually be doing it. Many funders will often ask for a plan as well. And it may be a plan around a specific activity that you're applying for funding for, or it may be the wider club plan. But obviously, applying for funding and having a plan will go some way to showcase that funder that you are a well-run and a sustainable club, because you've thought about your future and the direction of travel you want to go in. And finally, some top tips. So as I said earlier, this is obviously a great time to review your plan, or if you don't have a plan, a great time to start pulling one together. And it's always best to start that planning as early as possible. We all know that it feels like 2 minutes ago when we had our last committee meeting, and where did that time go, and we haven't done the activities we said we were going to do. So involve the right people and discuss the plan with as many people as you see fit necessary. It might be members in the club, it might be other clubs, it might be the county as well. And all of these, for those of you that are involved in the county as well, has your county got a plan? Do they know what they want to achieve and support? And obviously, again, at this time, it's a great opportunity to put that plan in place. And if you have no idea on what a plan should look like, go back to the reasons your organisation exists, whether it's a club, a county, a region, or other. Look at your constitution. In your constitution, it says what your club is there for, what your county is there for, and therefore you could possibly build your plan around that. So create that plan, and as I said, it doesn't need to be long. It doesn't need to be 15 pages. It could be just 1 or 2 pages, and Will gave us a good example earlier. Use it regularly, and don't be afraid to change it if circumstances dictate otherwise. Try to plan for changes and try to be in a position where making changes is an easy thing for you to do, so that you're not stuck potentially doing one activity that you want to change, but you're not able to do that. And that goes back to having realistic and achievable targets. And I think by having those targets, it will mean that you can stay on track. And at every point, you may need some help, and help is out there if you need it. It may be that you know that a club down the road from you has had some funding and they've got a plan. So go and talk to them, ask them what their plan looks like, ask them how they went through that process of bringing that plan together. It may be that you potentially want to come and speak to us. This is what we're here for, to help you achieve your aims and objectives. So if there is anything you think that we can do, putting you in touch with a certain organisation or another club that's done something similar to what you want to achieve, then that's what we're, as I said, that's what we're here for, and we can definitely do that. So that comes to the end of the first section. So I would like to give my voice a little bit of a rest. So if there are any questions or anybody that wants to come forward and ask a few things, then now is the time to do it.
Yeah, so we do have a question raised by, I'm not sure if it's Carmel and Dave or Carmel or Dave. Where a club has more than one target or vision, would you need a plan for each, or can they be combined into a single plan? I think. Yeah.
Okay. Carmel and Dave, or Carmel or Dave, do you want to just flesh that question out a little bit for us, if you wouldn't mind just unmuting yourself?
Sorry for the delay, just trying to find a slightly less noisy background.
Yeah, sorry to put you on the spot.
That's okay. So I'm thinking, if a club, for example, wanted to improve the way they deliver tournaments, and also wanted to improve the way they deliver coaching to their members, would you need a plan for each of those, or is it possible somehow to combine both of those visions into a single plan?
Would that just be for an internal use, or would that be to share more wider than that?
Well, internal use, I would think, just for the club. I'm just looking sort of a way forward. If we were looking to improve our coaching to our members, to encourage more people to come into the club, but also looking to provide members not only of our club but of the whole archery fraternity to and providing them with competitions that they want to come to. We've sort of got two slightly different visions there.
Right.
Would we need
Okay.
to-
Yeah. So I think you need to make it work for you, because this is obviously your plan, your targets that you want to achieve. So if it works by having an overall document to say these are our 2 priorities that we're going to achieve over or try to achieve over the next year, 2 years, whatever that time scale is, and then each of them you could flesh out a 1-page plan that has activities that sits underneath that. So if you had both of them, 2 separate working groups, you could have them have their own separate plan that they're working to, but obviously somebody would potentially need to make sure they don't end up conflicting, and splitting resources down the middle, whether that's funding or money or people potentially. So whatever works for you really, because if it's an internal thing, you just want to make sure that you have set down some realistic targets and you actually achieve them. And Karen's made a comment here about they've got a work in progress list. They then compile all of their goals onto one working document. So it might be that if you've got separate people looking at separate things, but that they then contribute to that one document, so everybody knows what's been trying to achieve.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you. Karen, is there anything that about your work in progress list that you wanted to potentially mention, and people can pick up some tips from that?
Yeah, so we keep this as a document that we review at every committee meeting, and it contains pretty much everything that needs doing, from sort of major projects, like we've just recently refitted the kitchen in our clubhouse, and last year we had a new tarmac drive put down at our club, to the kind of smaller sort of maintenance tasks that come up. And the useful thing about it is that it provides a sort of continuous action list. It's clear from that list what actions we've got going on. I think it helps us to prioritise which of those we need to do in the sort of short, medium and long term. And it clearly identifies who's responsible for each of those. So it helps the committee to have a sort of broad oversight of what's happening. And it has helped us, I think, to do something you were mentioning earlier on, which is to keep coming back to discussions we've had time and again that have never quite been finished off about the same subjects. It means that we can, if something's brought up at the AGM, for example, that club members want us to look at, we can put it on that list, thrash out what the solution to that particular issue is, or if there's no solution, if it's something that we just need to say there isn't anything we can do about that. And I think it helps us to kind of frame up our way of working. I would say we've probably used that over and above the kind of objective setting and planning that you've described. I think we've found that to be a more manageable way for a big, relatively big committee of about 14 people to kind of see the vision of the club in a more simplistic form.
Yeah, and I think it works for your club, and you found something that is achievable, and that's the main thing about this is that it could be a 1-pager, it could be a 15-page document, whatever works for your club in order to make it happen. Just on that, is that whole list then, is it moving towards an overall goal, or is it is the actual individual items doing that themselves? I'm just wondering whether you can look back and you can go, actually, yeah, we know what direction of travel we're going in. If you end up with a work in progress list of 50 items, is there an overarching kind of, yes, it will make that list, no, it won't, because this is what we're trying to achieve?
I think it's a place where we make those decisions to some extent. So it's not necessarily one overarching document that's aiming towards a particular outcome, but it's an overarching document that helps us to determine which of the pieces of work that the committee bring or members bring to us we really want to progress with, and then those become sort of projects of their own, as it were. So to give you an example of something we've got on there at the moment, we've gradually over the last couple of years been developing a more robust approach towards enabling existing members to access coaching, and our current coaching officer is looking at really engaging with all of the coaches. We're a club that have access throughout the week, and so different people come on different days, different coaches had been operating in different ways, and what we've wanted to try to do, a number of us on the committee, is to start to form that up into a more consistent plan. So one of the things on our work in progress list is a collection of things that come under that heading. Obviously the lead person for that then within the club committee is the coaching officer, and they're engaging with some members of the committee, but also with the wider coaching volunteer group, and then they will have their own project. So that will have its own set of documents that kind of sit elsewhere, but the work in progress helps us to say, okay, so that's a piece of work we've got going on at the moment. We don't want to add lots of other little bits and pieces that are going to distract us from that maybe don't have the same priority for us as that. And so it provides a kind of framework. And I think it's probably, I think one of the challenges with this kind of idea about club development is that people see some of the language that's used around it, and particularly for volunteers, it sort of feels like they've come out of the workplace into something that they're volunteering to help with because it's part of the sport that they love, and they don't necessarily want to find themselves in their personal time, as it were, even as volunteers, doing things that they would recognise as being work. And I think that this kind of more, if you like, a more kind of friendly, user-friendly list has been a good way for us to introduce topics to the committee in a way that people feel that they can engage with without feeling it's too much like work. But then those people who really want to run with a project, or projects that become really important to club members, have really taken off through following through that method. And things that have been discussed over years that we've established, this isn't going anywhere, we need to kind of keep picking this up. So for instance, a question around having some kind of alarm system at our club was something that we just established. It wasn't going to be practical, it wasn't going to be feasible, it didn't make a difference to the security measures. We put different security measures in place and we could knock that off the agenda.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's really good to hear about that, Karen. Thank you for sharing that with us. Yeah, the being, as I said earlier, being a volunteer, being a chairman of a committee of a hockey club, quite a large hockey club, and lots of people, you know, asking for different things. It is as you say, sometimes you feel like you've gone straight out of work and straight into another job that you're doing and trying to manage. So anything that you can do to make it more friendlier, as you say, is much better. Absolutely. So yeah, thank you for that. That's a really good way of doing things. Helen, any other questions at this time?
Yes, Andrew Kelly has asked a really good question. When initially making a plan, what timescales do you recommend that is used for short, medium and long term in numbers of years as a starting point? And Will's has already commented, which is really useful, that they, at the University of Bristol, the scale we're given to Phil by our national governing, by the governing body at the university is 1, 3 and 5 year plans. So yeah, that's in response to Andrew's question.
Right, yeah, no, see, it might be that you, when you look at the short, medium and long term, it may be that you have a look at the actual activities themselves, and determine that, you know, the short term might be, what are we going to achieve in the outdoor season? What are we going to achieve in the indoor season? Medium might be, what are we going to achieve over the next couple of years? And obviously long term might be good 3, 4, 5 years? What do we want to look like in 5 or 6 years' time? But certainly, be guided by the activities that you're actually drawing up. So take a look at them and say, right, okay, so if we're going to achieve 5 extra level 1 coaches and 3 to 5 beginners courses every year, and we've only got 1 coach now, how long is it actually going to take to train up those coaches and get that in place? So definitely Will's suggestion there of 1, 3 and 5 years might be a good starting point, and then looking at the activities that you've actually got on your agenda and your plan, you might then have to adjust them accordingly. Okie dokie. Some great questions there, some really good examples of what clubs are doing, and in all of this is the point of having these discussions, and not just for us to sit here and say you must do this, you must do that. This is an opportunity to pick up ideas both from ourselves, but obviously other people on the calls as well. So and take those ideas and make them work for you at your club. If it's not working for you, don't do it, because you'll just end up doing activities that you ultimately hate doing. So really make it work for you. So Mandy, you've asked about people on the committee. Are you there, Mandy?
Yes, I'm here.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah, I mean, for me, I know you know a little bit about the history of my club. We're still sort of like a small club, and when I keep using that word, because when I say small, I basically mean it's pretty much me and my secretary that are running the club. And I'm trying to get more people involved, but it's just not happening. They're not coming forward for various reasons. And I'm just wondering if I get to the next stage of asking sort of like parents of some of the juniors who do look as though they might be interested, do they have to be a member of the club to be on the committee, or help me actually run the club?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we've had this clarified because certainly when clubs get bigger, there is more jobs to do, but clubs of any size can take on people to those committee roles that are non-members. So you could have a parent, you could have friends, you could have your family members, whatever it may be. So they could be they could take on the treasurer role, they could even take on the chairman, they could take on the secretary role, whatever role it is. The only thing that they can't do as a non-member is obviously shoot. So the moment the moment they head towards that shooting line and pick up a bow or coach or judge, they would have to be a member. So they would then have to do a beginner's course or things like that. And I know some clubs do ask their committee members to be members of the club, members of Archery GB, but that isn't something that we have dictated. So the insurance does provide cover for volunteers that are non-members doing those administrative administrative tasks. Yeah, as long as they're not shooting or coaching or judging, then they can do that.
Okay, so do they have to pay anything to be able to do that? So, rather than just be the parent of a junior, do they need to pay the club a nominal fee to say that they are a member? And it's a difficult one, because I'm trying to get my head around it as much as possible, because what I'm trying to do is offload a lot of the work that I'm doing, because this is turning into a full-time job, and actually I like to work and earn money. So I'm trying so I'm trying really hard to sort of like look at the people within my club, whether they're parents or whatever, and just thinking, can they do the treasurer role? Can they do the development role? But I don't know whether or not I can just ask them, or whether or not they actually do need to be a member of the club, not Archery GB, but a member of the club. That's what I'm unclear about.
Yeah, so there's a couple of comments that have come in that aid this this conversation. So Paul's mentioned that they've had lots of similar situations, and providing an ultimatum does sometimes work, but yeah, so you know, we need people to come forward, we need people to help this club. I can't do it all on my own, we can't do it all on our own, and I'm sure that's something you recognise, because most people end up in committee roles because of that situation anyway. And a couple of comments around your constitution. So in terms of people looking at taking on roles, you have a constitution, you should have a look at that. So that will dictate whether you can bring in people on as non-members. It should also dictate how those roles are filled. So normally the main roles, you know, a treasurer, chairman, secretary, etc., you normally would have an annual general meeting where they're voted in, or you're shoehorned in because you're the last person to put your hand down. And Paul's made a good point about it being, you know, it means that people sometimes feel forced into that role, and you end up taking on more and more hats and more responsibilities. But have a look at your constitution first and make sure that what we've talked about is achievable. If it isn't achievable with the constitution that you have, you know, feel free as a club to change it. Now, again, you would have to do that at the AGM and have that voted through. But in terms of paying to be a club member, again, that's down to you as a club to determine that and what it states in your constitution. It may be that you say volunteer members, you know, don't have to pay anything, or you could say we'll charge you £5 and we'll give you a T-shirt that says you're a member of the club, and that, you know, but you would also, but depending on your rules, you would have to go to that AGM and be voted in, you know, put that nomination in, and have the members vote onto it. So yeah, so there's a couple of strategies there that you could potentially look at, but yeah, non-members can take on those roles. Just check your rules out, and if you want to change your rules, then change your rules, but obviously it would mean your members voting on it that initially.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers, Mandy, take care. Malcolm's made some good points about breaking the roles up into smaller tasks that you could potentially ask to do. Some people find that that's a really good way of getting volunteers just to do small time related tasks, but yeah, Andrew's made a good point that it's, you know, you end up, some people taking on more than one role and more than one task, but again, taking on the responsibility of treasurer. Many of you have treasurers, many of you now have membership secretaries, because there is a lot to do and you've broken that role into small tasks. It may be that you can break those roles that you have in your club into smaller tasks, and you may find in some cases, not all the cases, but in some cases that that people will be more willing to do short-term tasks. Excuse me. Okay, let's move on then. Time for me to manage the chat function, and time for Helen to take control of the presentation. Helen, are you okay to take control?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Just to also thank Karen for offering to share her list of actions, or to do the work in progress list. That would be really useful, Karen. So you have our contact details. Yeah, we would love to hear from you. And a couple of people have said that they'd really appreciate seeing those. So that would be great. And just on that point of kind of recruiting volunteers, if it is useful for you, there are webinars coming up about volunteer experience and resources as well on the Club Matters website. So if you wanted to take part in the volunteer experience webinar, there are two coming up on the 19th and the 27th of May. So we do have spaces that you might be able to take for thinking about recruiting volunteers and splitting down roles, which several of you have commented on tonight. So, okay, so moving on then to think about the OnTarget programme. So OnTarget is Archery GB's club development programme, and all the aspects we've been talking about tonight about personalising a club plan and having a focus, having a direction of travel that your club wants to move in, or even two main aims that you want to move towards. For example, it was mentioned earlier, coaching and tournaments, if they were your aims, that sort of area of performance. That would be something that you might be able to build into a plan and join the Archery GB Club Development Programme OnTarget with that plan. So that would encourage you to be setting those goals similar to what we've been talking about this evening. So clubs join the overall development programme, and then they identify the particular focus that they want to take up in the few years in front of them. So if we look at the next slide then, please, Aaron. So the main benefit of the club development programme is a better club. So these are the things that we believe that clubs that are signing up for these specialisms will then become more attractive to those outside of the sport, and may attract in existing members who are looking for those values that haven't found them locally, or just hadn't had those kind of activated. When you switch on and focus on a specialism, that might attract them in. You can demonstrate that you have thought about your members' needs and are thinking about how you can have more satisfied members and a thriving club. So hopefully increasing the quality of experience for your members. So when a club joins OnTarget, then it will have the status of being an OnTarget club, and then they could choose to specialise in one of the 3 specialisms or more than one. When you achieve a specialism, you receive a certificate, a logo, and the club finder then shows that your club has that particular specialism. We're promoting the specialism clubs above others as examples of good practice. So that then helps share your experiences with other clubs, and then you get the promotion across the wider archery family. And you could also mention your specialism, or more than one if you achieve more than one, when applying for future funding. So that may help your case as well. You would get extra support from the Archery GB staff, those of us that are involved in club support. 2 additional people in your club that are involved in developing the club could have logins to the online forum that Archery GB runs called Learning Curve. So licensed coaches should already have logins for Learning Curve, but you'd also receive 2 additional logins if you became an OnTarget club. And there is a club development group within Learning Curve that we can focus down on club development topics, like some of the things we've been talking about tonight, and funding and other things, so you can make the most of those resources. And we've mentioned that you'd receive the logo, so you can use that in your own club promotion. And you'd also receive a discount if you were to book onto a club development workshop or INCO workshop, which we run workshops face-to-face at particular clubs or locations around the country. So there'd be a discounted entry price if you're an on-target club. You could mention that you're an on-target club when writing bids for funding. And we've mentioned it shows on the club finder. You've got the 3 specialisms. The 3 specialisms are young people, performance, and community. And the areas in which you grow your club in the specialisms will attract members who are looking for those particular values. Also, every year we'll run the on-target club competition, which will enable you to shoot against another on-target club in a sort of knockout style competition, with the finals normally being held at Lilleshall. And annual on-target club and volunteer awards, which we very recently held a presentation one evening online this year of the winners of the club and volunteer on-target club and volunteer awards. And the recording of that is on YouTube as well. Just brilliant opportunity to celebrate really good practice and recognise the hard work that volunteers and clubs had put in. And for each specialism, as you see on the screen, there is a feather flag, and you can purchase one of those feather flags when you achieve a specialism. As you can see from the picture, they look really smart and very attractive at club night or at an event. And there are some clubs that have achieved all 3 specialisms, so that makes it look even more impressive. The specialism clubs will receive priority when we're looking to support clubs, and possible discounts on other courses as well. Okay, so the programme was created in response to club issues, what lots of clubs were facing. So they're not rigid, but there is a framework for clubs to follow. The focus is on retention, satisfaction, and progress of archers. So for each of the specialisms, as you see on screen, there is an assessment, and you can decide whether the club meets or does not meet the characteristics. So in order to achieve the specialism, you would have to meet all of the characteristics shown for that particular specialism. There is more detail in the brochures on the website than you'll see on the screen. That's a sort of summary of the characteristics. So you would go away and read through the criteria, and would encourage you to discuss it with the committee. And when you're in agreement about how your club displays that particular characteristic or meet the characteristics, then you can come online and tell us. So within the members portal, a club can have up to 3 people with access to the club admin, and you probably know who you are if you've already got that access. And any of those 3 people can complete the application for the club to join on target first, and that would help us to see which of the specialisms you're thinking of going towards, and a little bit about your club and its overall aims. And then if you were to go on to apply for the specialism, then you do that through the members portal as well. And that will also show the expiry dates, when on target expires and needs renewing, and when each of the specialisms will need evaluating to see how well that you did, to see how you measured up against the goals that you set yourselves, and renew it. So they need renewing every 2 years. we'll also remind you as a club if you've got a specialism that's coming up for renewal, and it should take no longer than around 15 minutes to apply for. So after a club achieves on target status, there's no deadline between that and going for one of the specialisms, but it's really when you achieve a specialism that you would start to really make those improvements to the club.
Then Peter's asked, how about a specialism for disability? And I'm happy to answer that. We have had discussions about a disability or an inclusive specialism, but the conclusions we came to is that we wanted to make the sport, and a lot of you tell us the sport is, and we know it is, inclusive, and we didn't want to necessarily give clubs the tag or the branding, for want of a better word, of being a disability club, and then for other clubs to turn around, and we know this has happened in some areas of the country, for them to turn around and say, well, we're not a disability club, but they are down the road, and then for clubs to kind of point people to away from their own club. We do want to encourage clubs to think about the members coming in the door, and for you to provide a quality experience for them. So that's kind of some of the background discussions we've had, and why we've not necessarily chosen to do a specific disability specialism. But it would be interesting to get your feedback on that, and to understand whether there is a potential need for it. And just a comment there as well, just from Hugh around learning curve. So just to reinforce what Helen said a second ago, the learning curve, every licensed coach should have had an invitation to it. So if you're a licensed coach and you haven't, then get in touch through either the coaching team or the membership team, and then every on-target club can have 2 logins, and we are looking at rolling out some further information that will be relevant to tournament organisers and judges and other key volunteers as well. So it is aimed at the volunteer element of a club, not necessarily the archer element.
That's great, thank you. So if we're thinking about on target then, just as a summary, at the moment we have 193 on target clubs, 52 of which hold the community specialism, 24 the young people specialism, and 22 the performance specialism. And that performance specialism is about not just moving archers forward in their performance, but all volunteers. So it could be training up coaches, it could be progressing people on to be a judge, or to become a more experienced judge. So it's all kind of aspects of developing your club in all of their performance, all their different giftings and interests. So yeah, the purpose of and the objective of On Target would be to use your plan, your goals, to review regularly and check that you're on track with where you want your club going. So as we've talked this evening about measuring yourself against your goals, your management, your committee meeting, lots of clubs will have a review of the progress against their plan. And so this could be against your On Target club development plan. Regular reviews really help as frequently as possible to try and keep you on track and make sure that you're determined on that. And when you're making key decisions, if the decision doesn't fit with the overall plan, then it helps you question, should you be doing it? So it helps keeps you focused on the things you want to achieve. And as we've mentioned, helpful when applying for funding, and shows that you mean business in developing your club. So like an action plan, your on target plan should be seen as a living program. So you don't cross out a line and forget about it for 3 years, or sign up to on target but actually never change anything in practice at the club. It is something that you want to be referring back to regularly and updating as you put those things into action and your club progresses. And we will be helping you do that as well. From our end, we can see the goals that you identified and help come back to you and ask how you're getting on. So the programme has changed and adapted, and as you, from the clubs, you need to adapt from your end as well. Okay, if we look at the next slide. So just to re-emphasise, if you are looking how to sign your club up to on target within the members portal, there's just an example on screen of how you would look to add an attribute, and you see on target listed there in the list of attributes right at the top, and you would go ahead on to the right hand side and click the add button. If you're signing up to on target, you would choose on target first and complete the questions. If you're already an on target club thinking of signing up to a specialism, then when you seek to add an attribute, you can choose which of the specialisms you're adding, and it's really clear on screen when you're doing that. Okay, so another good point to take a pause and consider some discussions and some questions.
Yeah, thanks for that, Helen. That's really good. Is there anybody that their club is an on-target club and has felt that the programme has helped them develop? Is there anybody that is struggling to understand how they can get the best out of on target? And Chrissy's also asked for a bit more of an explanation of what learning curve is. So once we've had a few questions, discussion, then I'm happy to share the screen grabs of what learning curve looks like to give you a bit of a better idea. But if we just stay with any questions around on target for now, and then we'll show you what learning curve is in a second. You've stunned everybody into silence, Helen.
Oh yes, good question there from Andrew. At the moment, we're asking clubs to renew the on target attribute roughly every 5 years, because obviously after 5 years the club will have changed quite a lot. So it's a good opportunity to evaluate how you've done against your goals and kind of refresh those by reapplying. And as we said, when you join as an on target club, there's no deadline as to how quickly you want to then go ahead and achieve a specialism, because some clubs may need some time to work towards a specialism, but we would encourage you to be moving in that direction, and the specialisms are renewed every 2 years to keep them fresh.
Helen from Wellingborough. Come on, Helen, unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. We have the community and the young persons. We've applied for the performance. I think the paperwork went in just before lockdown, so I'm not sure where that's at. Community is fairly straightforward. All three processes, putting the paperwork together to apply for it makes you think about what you're doing. And for us, the majority of what needed putting on there we were doing already, and people didn't really appreciate how much we were doing at the club. So it's made people realise what they were getting. So the paperwork was fairly straightforward. But the young persons, we've always had a high percentage of the county juniors. But since having the young persons, we've now got predominantly most of the county juniors. We've made no attempt to go out and get them. We've not approached anybody, but they see that we've got that. So when we've been to competitions or when you're going and doing things, they ask the juniors at our club, what are you getting? So you've got parents of children, what do your children get at that club that mine aren't getting, or the children asking. So we've got parents bringing their children to us. And as you're aware, a lot of archers, we shoot as a family. So then this at renewals, their parents leave that club and come to us. So it's fantastic. I fully support the whole project, but it has made us unpopular in some areas of the county because they see it as a way of poaching members from other clubs, because they're losing that junior contingency because they're coming to the club that's got that facility for them. Because as you're aware, you have the coaching sessions that are exclusive for juniors and so on and so forth. So it is, I agree with it. I think it's a great idea, but just to be aware that it has the potential to make you slightly unpopular.
Yes, a bit of an unintended consequence.
Yeah.
But I would push back on that and say those clubs need to potentially look at what they are delivering, and could, and I know it might not be always the case, but could they then look at their activities and why? And I know your club has got some amazing facilities, but it's, you know, people don't always go to clubs just because of the facilities. They go there for the atmosphere and the ethos of the club. So is there a way of encouraging them to look at themselves?
I can assure you that I haven't taken the criticism without suggesting some things to them as an alternative. You know me, I'm not shy. I'm not going to stand there and take the criticism. But we've had a couple of local clubs who have set up some links with us with the juniors, and they've come over and done things as like mini, because it's Saturday mornings. Saturday mornings we have what we refer to as cult sessions. For many years, WOAC has had, it's almost a club within a club. It's when the juniors go out either in county or anywhere to compete, they are the colts. So although they're shooting singularly, they belong to a group of other people on the field. So it gives them a level of confidence. So I don't think any other club in Northamptonshire has that. So they see they're almost joining the team. So we have suggested to other areas, and I know a couple of other clubs within the county have started to try and do that. And they've brought some of their juniors over on a Saturday morning to have sessions to work out what we do, how that might work at their club. But as you're aware, a lot of clubs don't like change, so they don't want to bring in something different. And we are very blessed that we have a high number of coaches, and some of those coaches particularly enjoy interacting with the juniors and developing juniors. And some of the coaches within our club and within the county don't enjoy working with the juniors. So I think there's a number of different elements really, but it's just to be aware. I think it's a fantastic scheme, and I would absolutely fully support anybody that was trying to go for it, if for no other reason than sometimes actually it just makes you realise what you already do. But it has that knock on that we didn't expect it. I didn't foresee it.
I think that there's a role there for some county coordination as well. You know, so could, you know, at a county level, is there an opportunity to look at how clubs are developing, and if you've seen that situation, it's like, right, okay, can we all work together for the development of the sport? So yeah, I know it's not always the case, and that definitely is an unintended consequence, and you know, but thank you for raising that. Picking on you again, sorry. Couple more questions, Helen. Mandy, so new at Castle Archers, have only just signed up to ontarget, and obviously the lockdowns happened. Is there any effect that will have on that?
Yeah, thanks for checking that, Mandy. That's not a problem at all. As I mentioned, there's no deadline as such to move towards your first specialism. So we just want to support you in moving towards that in your own time. And obviously with lockdown happening at the moment, we understand things are not normal. So yeah, you'll be an on-target club for the next 5 years. So, and you can renew it then as well. But yeah, I'm sure in that 5 years you'll have moved the club forwards by the sounds of the things that you've got going on at the club. So no problem there. And
okay, Sophie's asking how flexible the specialism criteria are. So she's clearly at a university club. Obviously, it's difficult to fit to the criteria when, you know, members obviously turn over probably a bit more quicker than they do in community clubs. So yeah, we'd be happy to discuss and see how we can help you understand what we're trying to achieve through those criteria. So there are some criteria that we see as a bit of a continuum, but the process is a self-assessment. So if you feel that you do meet the criteria, then we'd be happy for you to tick that box and showcase how over the next year, 2 years, potentially you're going to move along that continuum. So at the moment, you might just kind of scrape past the line, for want of a better word, but you've got certain activities planned that you know that will move you along that continuum. And it is, we have discussed again, like we mentioned earlier, in terms of having a specialism for disability archery, sorry. We have also discussed criteria for universities as well. So if you feel that, you know, a conversation around that would be good, then we'd be happy to have that with you and other university clubs as well. So we have had some come forward and achieve the specialisms, mainly the performance specialism, I think, but you know, universities can work towards any of those specialisms. So Helen, how much are the flags and how do we get hold of them?
yeah, I've just put a little message in the chat there that
okay.
No problem.
Marvellous. Thank you.
Yeah, so they're £50 plus VAT, and then there's postage and packaging on the on top. So I think it works out £72. So we can send an invoice to clubs with the specialism if you want to just drop us an email and let us know that you'd like for us to invoice you. There will be a delay in getting those out to you, as I'm sure you can imagine. At the moment we can't go and get the flags and send them out to you, but we'll send them as soon as possible, as soon as we're back to getting in the store.
Yeah, as soon as we can get back to the office. Yeah, so Malcolm's raised a good point around the community specialism. Obviously, one of the criteria around the community specialism is having that monthly opportunity for potential new members to shoot. And like we just mentioned in terms of Sophie's question, there's a little bit of flexibility in achieving that criteria. So it may be that you do a combination of activities. So not every club, some clubs are able to do it, but not every club is able to do a beginner's course every month. And certainly as we come out of lockdown, that's going to be an interesting position for us to navigate through. But one of the ways, as you've said in your note, Malcolm, as well, is that one of the ways that people have achieved it is running a monthly have a go. So on the last Sunday of every month, or the last Thursday night or the first Tuesday of every month, is to have that opportunity where if people did turn up, you can put a bow and arrow into their hands for 10 minutes or so and give them an introduction to the sport. So that's the real purpose of the community specialism, so that people aren't being turned away and might find a different sport to do whilst they can't access archery. And they could come to that have a go and then obviously sign up to a future beginners course. So yes, there are many ways that monthly opportunity can be achieved.
Sorry, Aaron, can I jump in?
Yes, of course you can.
Yeah. So part of, I we've spoken about before. Part of the problem we have in my club is availability of beginner course places. Our interest list far exceeds our capacity to get them through a beginner's course. And we're frequently getting people dropping off the list before they get on the beginner's course. And we're trying to, or we have increased the number of spaces available in a year. So effectively we've doubled it, but we still fill them. But if we have a go on a monthly basis, I'd be generating interest in the club, which then I couldn't fulfill. I couldn't then get people to come along. So I don't feel like that's a good thing to do right now if I can't get people on the beginner's course fairly soon after they've had a go.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, go on.
Well, see, I mean, we are hamstrung by the number of beginner course places in a year in growing the club.
Yeah. Okay. So, have you seen the code of practice around taster sessions as well? Is that something that you could look into? So, a have a go obviously is, as you know, turning up 3 to 6 arrows and that's pretty much it. But a taster session is that in between stage between between that and a full-blown beginners course. So you can run a taster session for about an hour or an hour and a half and give people a little bit more of an interaction to the sport. Naturally, I know that this means people doing activities, volunteers putting themselves forward to run the activities. But could you look at a way of having a combination of different activities that satisfies the members of public needs, but also is managed internally with the amount of coaches and volunteers you've got to deliver those courses?
Yeah, I mean, volunteers is another issue, but I'm not sure having a taster session or sort of a have a go. I'm still generating interest in the club. We don't really advertise that much, and we still get more interest than we can manage. We've spoken to some the shops and trying to, can we push them through shop courses, and there's a limited capacity to be able to do that. You talk to other clubs and they've got their own courses and they're filling those. So I don't feel like, I don't want to put advertising or activities, arrange activities, and then not be able to follow through on giving them the proper beginner's course and get them into archery properly.
Yeah.
I think what you're doing is putting people off. You give them the opportunity and then they can't fulfill. That's how I feel about it.
No, absolutely. Yeah, no, okay, that's a fair comment to make, absolutely. In terms of the beginners courses, do you know why people actually want to do it? Is it because they want to, are you seeing 100% take up into the club, which is great if you are, or are you seeing that some people are just trying out the sport, for a number of weeks? So the reason I didn't explain it very well, but the reason I mentioned the taster sessions is that you could deliver sessions that are an hour and a half long, and give people a little bit more of an introduction to the sport, and then work out those that actually, this is the sport for me, and this is where I do want to go on. So you can then kind of filter them out and then move them onto the beginners course. I don't know whether that's achievable or not. You know your club and how you operate, but that was part of the reason why we were looking at those taster sessions and formalizing them, because we knew a lot of people were doing it in that way anyway.
Okay, I hadn't thought of it along those lines. Might help when we get about a 50% take up from our courses to actually join the club. Various reasons why people don't join, but maybe those taster sessions could help. Yeah, it's a good thought. Yeah, okay, thank you, Aaron.
Just a thought as well, Malcolm, or a question really, whether there might be other local clubs that do have room on their beginners courses that you could perhaps come to some sort of arrangement where you work together, or across the county, where if they're close enough, people could do a beginners course at a different club. Or I don't know whether you've got space in your club for people that have finished training on a beginners course. It's just the beginners course part that's the problem, or whether you could have a strategy with another local club, maybe.
Yeah, we have sort of informal arrangements with other local clubs. I wouldn't say it's formal though. If we've got spare spaces, we offer them out to other clubs and vice versa. So that's a bit more informal than formal. To a point. I mean, I suppose I really should look at that again to see if we can get more spaces. But it's just space. I mean, I know if I advertise the club properly, we'd be flooded, which would be great. But I haven't got the capacity to process them. But we can look at those. Yeah,
no, absolutely, and hopefully after this lockdown period, and it may be a while before we do get back to some kind of normality as we've had, but hopefully, fingers crossed, that interest is still there, and we can get more people into the sport. So okay, just on that, Alan has sent me a message around beginners courses after lockdown. We are looking, just to make everyone aware, we are looking at what potentially would happen if lockdown is released. We're working with a group of volunteers on potentially what a range would look, a club range would look like with social distancing in place. And obviously we don't have all the answers at the moment. A beginner's course under social distancing, it's going to be hard, and I'm sure you've thought about that yourselves. But we are having those discussions, and I think we are a bit further down the road now with some of the conversations we've had internally and with volunteers as well. So as I'm sure you're all aware, there is supposed to be an announcement. I think it's been pushed back to Sunday now. Announcement on Sunday, and after that we can determine the next steps. But our senior managers and CEO have had conversations with Sport England, UK Sport, and through them the Department of Culture, Media and Sport. So hopefully we can share that information with you as soon as we can, and hopefully some positive news comes out of Sunday, and we can move forwards. Okay, so we're rapidly heading towards 9 o'clock, so I don't want to go beyond that. There's a couple of questions I just wanted to cover quite quickly. John asked, how can you be an on-target club for 5 years when the specialism needs to be renewed every 2? So the on-target element of it is the kind of the overall application for being part of the on-target program, and we've only ever renewed it once. So there are clubs. We don't expect clubs to continually be doing developing activities or moving forward great strides. There are periods of time where you will just have a lull, and as Malcolm said, you know, sometimes you need to potentially stop and make sure that people coming into the club have a good experience and are progressing as archers. So the on-target process we've only renewed once, but then we've put a 5-year limit on that. So people change, people leave the club, the on-target reps, the secretaries of the club, etc., churn over as much as archers do. So that process of renewing as an on-target club just gives us the contacts, the where your club is at the moment, so we have that up-to-date information. And the specialisms, as Helen outlined earlier, we do want you to think about the changes that you are making, and it's not a line in the sand that you cross and you've ticked the box and you say that's it, I'm an on-target community specialism club forever. You know, there are changes that you potentially want to make. So it's just a way of checking in every few years to make sure that you're still moving forwards, and sometimes that might be great leaps and bounds, and sometimes that might be short steps. Just looking down at some of the other, just making sure we've covered off the questions. Okay, so Nick, hi Nick, has asked about running have a goes for local groups as well, so round table. So absolutely, I think that in terms of the community specialism, that would hit the criteria for you know, you would have an overall plan for your club. So part of it may be beginners courses, part of it may be have a goes that you hold in the club for local members, part of it may be have a goes for local groups like the round table, as you've suggested, as long as overall there is a something happening on a monthly basis that you're able to showcase the sport and give the opportunity for people to pick up that bow and arrow. Okay, so I think that probably brings us to the end of the webinar. It's been great to have you have you on board tonight, and great to listen to all the great work that's going on out there. And some of those examples, we'll make sure that we share them with you, especially the planning checklist that Karen mentioned earlier. That sounds great. And we'll share the slides with you, and the recording will go on to YouTube. So I'm sure my monotonous voice will be able to send you off to sleep if you need it to. But if you've got any further questions after this webinar, then please get in touch with me. My contact details are on screen. Unfortunately, Helen is not working with us at the moment. She's been furloughed, but obviously as a we're allowed to do training, so she's graciously giving up her evening to support the training opportunities. So that's great that she can still be involved. We have got a reduced staffing at the moment, but please feel free to get in touch. And if there's anything we can help with, then please let us know. I've just remembered as well, we want to show you learning curve. So I'll just give you a quick showcase of what learning curve is. If you just bear with me a second whilst I log in. So basically, Learning Curve is a platform that we can share information and videos and discussions. And it's a little bit like a feed in terms of Facebook. So as you can see, I'll just scroll down here. There are questions that people have asked. There are topics you can click on and enter, and we can make comments, and staff members can reply. Helen's put a post here about the OnTarget awards that we did the other evening. So it's a little bit like a Facebook feed, but there are a number of groups that you can join. So I've switched to the groups now, and because I've been creating groups, we've got some draft groups here. We've got a group about funding. We have a group, an emerging group around range assessments for our range assessors, club development, and some topics around coaching, equipment, etc. So you can click on each of these groups, and you can then go into the topics. So this one is called Coaching Science, as you can see, and inside here we've got 6 topics. So what is coaching? So again, you can go into that, and there's a number of cards available to go through, and you can work through these cards at your own pace. And some of them have videos, some of them have links to other areas. This one doesn't have video, so if I just go back a bit, that's Fit for Archery. So there's some videos here of people doing some activities, etc. So so it's a way of us being able to support our volunteers with courses and information and videos, and generate discussion. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of what Learning Curve is. And as I said in the chat, if anybody requires a log on, then if you email membership@archerygb.org, and we'll get those log on details to you. So thanks very much, and that is the end of the presentation.